The Dow is set for a steady reopening as they had a little bit of a tumble yesterday. Fauci testifies in front of the Senate and he gets a little bit of help from one side and a little bit of grilling from the other. California may stay locked down now until July, and AOC may be the new face of the Unity Project for the Democratic Party. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So I wonder if our new friends are actually going to come in from last night's live stream that we had with Fallout New Vegas. We had a couple new faces come in, including a gentleman who did not care for the fact that a YouTube streamer was also streaming on Twitch. That was kind of entertaining, but somebody did try and set him in his place from the YouTube side. I thought that was really, really funny. But yeah, I do hope that everybody else will come by and check us out and see the news here for the day. And we've got a lot of news to get to, of course. It was a bit of a tumultuous day, especially as far as the COVID side goes, and maybe not so much of a tumultuous day for everything else. But we saw a lot of motion on the COVID stories. But before we get into anything, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We've got the Generational Gap, the R-Rated Conservative, Freckles and Britt, Wyatt Birkenhoff, Stephen Ignoramus, and of course, your wonderful host as well are all over there. Go check out all of our back catalogs and go check out our merch, including some sweatshirts that are going to start showing up. And I'm going to start getting some push for some vinyl stickers too. So go and check us out over there. Let's get the live chat up here so we can see what's going on here. Looks like we've got the sticker party over there, but it's time to get into the news. So we're going to start, of course, with Investors Business Daily. Oh, I don't have the live chat up. There we go. Dow Jones Futures, is the coronavirus stock market rally disconnected from economic reality? This is from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures turned modestly higher early Wednesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures erasing solid overnight losses, ahead of comments by Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell. Despite Tuesday's sell-off, the coronavirus stock market rally has come a long way from March lows. The NASDAQ is not far from all-time highs, led by Netflix, Amazon, Shopify, ServiceNow, Apple, Microsoft, and other big techs. ServiceNow stock and Microsoft stock are in buy zones now. Netflix stock and Amazon stock are getting up new entries, while AMD, Facebook, and Alphabet are closing on buy points. All of these stocks edged higher before Wednesday's open. But is the stock market rally disconnected from the grim economic reality? That may not be the right question for investors. Yes, go ahead and scare more people away from investing into something that's going to make this all go up. Dow Jones Futures rose a fraction versus fair value after being down more than 1% at one point overnight. S&P 500 futures climbed 0.1%. NASDAQ 100 futures were up 0.5% in the coronavirus stock market rally. Dow Jones Futures have been less volatile during the market crash, but Dow Futures can still show some notable swings. At 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Fed Chief Powell will speak at an online event hosted by the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington. Investors will pay close attention for any comments about the state of the economy and likely recovery, as well as an update on various extraordinary Fed stimulus and lending programs. Several Fed officials this week have criticized the idea of negative interest rates, which President Trump touted. I don't like any of that. Uber and Grubhub reportedly haven't agreed on a price after Grubhub soared Tuesday on Uber takeover buzz. Remember that overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. And then they go on and talk about the coronavirus stats, but we've heard enough of those at this point. The new numbers are out there. People aren't getting cases as fast as they were, and people aren't dying as fast as they were. So let's look on to see what CNBC has to say for this. What to watch today? Dow futures tracking for steady open after NASDAQ snapped winning streak. This is from Matthew J. Belvedere and Peter Schacknow. U.S. stock futures were pointing to a little change to open Wednesday for the Dow Jones Industrial Average after blue chips logged a second day of losses and the Nasdaq broke its six-session winning streak. The S&P 500, which snapped a three-session winning streak, the Dow and Nasdaq each dropped about 2% on Tuesday on concerns about whether reopening the economy might cause a second wave of coronavirus infections and spike in deaths. Investors will be looking for further guidance on the economic toll of the virus and where the Federal Reserve's historic monetary stimulus measures stand when Fed Chairman Jerome Powell speaks at a 9 a.m. Eastern Time Wednesday. The wild card here is the Fed can always step up their purchases of assets. Hedge fund pioneer Stanley Druckenmiller said Tuesday night, however, he said the risk reward for equity is maybe as bad as I've seen it in my career. The House Democrats' $3 trillion over 1,800-page coronavirus relief bill set for a possible vote Friday would face an uncertain future in the Senate. That's because it's a pile of shit, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Republicans on Capitol Hill and the White House wanted to take a pause to see how the already unprecedented emergency fiscal and monetary measures work. California is moving further into its reopening process, allowing some offices, malls, and outdoor museums to resume operations with modifications, even as the 23-campus California State University system plans to offer most courses for the fall online. That's not what I'm getting out of LA News, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Dr. Fauci, one of the country's top virologists, told a Senate panel Tuesday that the U.S. will unlikely have medical responses to the pandemic ready in time for the new school year. That's surprising because we need to get that shot of government indoctrination into the kids. U.S. cases approached 1.4 million Wednesday morning with over 82,300 deaths. Globally, total infections exceeded 4.2 million as fatalities neared 300,000. The hue and cost to reopening businesses continue to play out across Asia as South Korea reported 26 new cases and one new death attributed to a cluster of infections linked to nightclubs. In China, over the past 2 weeks, new cases have been reported in 7 provinces, including Hubei, where the outbreak originated last year. President Trump and the Labor Department directed a board charged with overseeing billions in federal retirement dollars to halt plans to invest in Chinese companies. Yeah, we talked a bit about that yesterday. An international index, the Thrift Savings Plan, is set to start tracking later this year. China is included in its equities in a broad range of developed and emerging markets. Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort was released from federal prison to serve the remainder of his 7.5-year sentence in home confinement amid fears of the spread of the coronavirus. Really? I'm pretty sure that if you're going to be locking up soccer moms, then you're definitely going to want the dangerous Paul Manafort to be in there forever too, but what do I know? I'm not a prosecutor. Last two here before we get on into the rest of the news. Gilead Sciences struck licensing deals with 5 generic drug makers for production of its antiviral drug remdesivir in 127 countries. In the United States, Mylan, the world's largest generic drug maker, is among them. I hope you bought your Gilead. Uber and Grubhub were at odds over price in a possible takeover deal. According to sources who spoke to CNBC, Uber is said to be in talks to acquire Grubhub and combine the food delivery service with its own Uber Eats business. Uber also filed to offer $750 million in senior notes that would be due in 2025. I don't use Uber or Grubhub. I do have a Grubhub account, but they're not so much where I live now. They're pretty weak down here. We've got Eat Street, and they'll come all the way up to the small town outside of the city, whereas Grubhub will only stay in the city and they won't come out. So I do like Eat Street a lot better, and their prices are a little bit fairer too. I wonder how that would change under Uber. All right, it's time to get into the news, guys. From the Daily Wire, we're going to start here. Pelosi's bill gives massive tax breaks to the rich in mostly blue states. Taxpayer money to illegal aliens, rather. This is from Ryan Saavedra. By the way, when you never buy coffee cups, you start to realize how quickly you find out that you can't put a coffee cup on webcam that won't give either your last name or a former employer or even a current employer. I was looking through the cabinet right before we went live to go get something to drink coffee out of, and the only thing I could find is this cool Dave & Buster's one that I think my old, well, you can't see that. This cool Dave & Buster's coffee cup that I think my roommate left behind when she moved out. Because I've never been to a Dave & Buster's. All right, let's move on. Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi unveiled her $3 trillion coronavirus stimulus package on Tuesday, which she reportedly crafted largely without bipartisan input. That includes a massive tax break for the super rich in predominantly blue states and directs taxpayer money to illegal aliens. It is imperative that we address the needs of the American people with clarity on how we proceed, Pelosi said on Tuesday afternoon. That is why today House Democrats are introducing the HEROES Act, named for our heroes, whose provisions are largely based on the 4 previous bipartisan bills we have passed. The HEROES Act focuses on 3 pillars: opening our economy safely and soon, honoring our heroes, and then putting much needed money into the pockets of American people. I want to meet the guy that comes up with these acronyms. I really do. CARES, HEROES, ACA, well, that one's pretty easy, but somebody actually sits down and makes acronyms for the acts that these people want to try and sell them to the American people. Buried deep inside her bill is a measure that would reinstate the so-called SALT itemized... that's how she's going to do it. Itemized deduction for 2020 and 2021, CNBC reported. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which went into effect in 2018, limited the amount of state and local tax deductions filers could claim on their tax returns to $10,000. The move would mostly benefit residents in high-tax states like California, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, all of which are Democrat strongholds. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget reported. Then looks like we've got a bunch of tweets and everything else out here, including Matt Stoller tweeting out, the bill gives a tax cut to upper-income blue state real estate owners for 2020 and 2021. The bill also lets wealthy people who make money from dividends and royalties claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is anti-poverty provision. Let's read on. Pelosi also included $3.6 billion in the bill to expand mail-in voting for the upcoming 2020 elections in November. That's illegal. Despite the fact that recent in-person voting election during the Despite the fact that a recent in-person voting election, during the pandemic in Wisconsin did not increase the coronavirus cases. Missing that one little letter threw the meaning of that whole sentence off, and I couldn't make sense of it. Over 28 million ballots have reportedly gone missing over the last 4 election cycles, which has raised concern among those who value election integrity due to the fears that mail-in voting could increase voter fraud. President Donald Trump has recently weighed in on the matter, tweeting, "Republicans should fight very hard when it comes to statewide mail-in voting. Democrats are clamoring for it. Tremendous potential for voter fraud. The best potential for voter fraud. And for whatever reason, doesn't work out well for Republicans." So I just got into a fight with this yesterday. We'll talk about the special elections here a little bit later on in the show, but I had some Twitter user. I posted out yesterday, I don't care if Katie Hill's district goes 95% for the GOP candidate. I still don't trust mail-in voting. I don't care how well it goes for the GOP. Because, of course, the GOP candidate in Katie Hill's district has the scandal advantage. We'll talk about that a little bit later here, but I don't care how well it goes for the GOP. I don't trust mail-in voting, and some hero who thought that I was a good guy because I posted a poll asking who Biden's potential nominee was. We actually started following each other because I decided he wanted to come in and look for a fight, and he gave me a fight. He definitely started fighting with me over the fact that everything voted. He loves mail-in voting, and everybody should just be the good little citizen and mail-in vote. And the one that got me is he kept going with, well, Trump mail-in votes. And I asked him 3 times why it matters what Trump does. I still don't trust the process. And then he insulted my YouTube channel and blocked me. That's Twitter for you. He came looking for a fight, I pissed him off, and then he couldn't hang and blocked me. But yes. So there's plenty of fun stuff in there, and we definitely need to be reading through the entire bill. I will get the full text of the bill linked up in the Discord, and I'll also link it over on my Twitter, so go and check that out. Next, from KTLA5 out of Los Angeles. LA County safer at home orders to remain in place for several months, but restrictions will be gradually relaxed. So, hey, stay in your home until July, but we'll loosen the vice just a little bit at a time. Like boiling with a frog in the opposite direction. Los Angeles County stay-at-home restrictions will likely last for 3 more months to combat the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. What crisis? You guys barely had any cases in Los Angeles, especially compared to your equally populous New York. County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer said on Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting, "Based on the data we're looking at, we know that with all certainty we'll be extending health officer orders for the next 3 months," she said. Both Ferrer and Supervisor Catherine Barger issued clarifying statements after Ferrer's comments were widely reported. While the safer-at-home orders will remain in place over the next few months, restrictions will be gradually relaxed under the county's existing roadmap to recovery. Ferrer said in a brief statement Tuesday evening, "We're counting on the public's continued compliance with the orders to enable us to relax restrictions." Barger also emphasized that the relaxing of restrictions said Ferrer's comments to the board were taken out of context. The back and forth comes 3 days before the county's stay-at-home order is set to expire, and officials still have not issued a formal extension. Mayor Eric Garcetti later clarified that the public health order wouldn't remain as is for 3 months and didn't anticipate any radical changes in it in the coming week. I think quite simply she's saying we're not going to fully reopen Los Angeles and probably anywhere in America without any protections or health orders for the next 3 months. Garcetti said in an interview with CNN, "I think we know it's going to be even longer than 3 months. We're not moving past COVID-19. We're learning to live with it. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID-19 life anytime soon." Well, I'm going to call bullshit on that. The mayor noted, however, that populations who are more at risk of adverse effects from the illness might need to stay home longer. But for most, the order will be modified to include actions designed to keep the virus from spreading. "We don't have to freeze life or freeze our economy where it is, but we will need to continue to have a health order about covering our faces, physically distancing, protecting our vulnerable populations," Garcetti said. The county initially issued stay-at-home orders in mid-March. Those were supposed to last until mid-April, but were extended last month as cases in the nation's most populous county continue to rise. But even if the restrictions continued for the most of summer, the health director emphasized that restrictions could be relaxed earlier with progress. I don't know, man. First off, hey, everyone in LA, it might be time to go spread out into the rest of the country. Leave your values with you because, I mean, this is what you get. You get your house arrest if you take your values with you, but definitely come out. I mean, you can spread out if you go to places, even warm climates like Arizona, New Mexico. I think New Mexico might accept you with your voting values. I'm not sure. Nevada. Places like that, where they still have some of the same climate that you have, but just more spread out. There's fewer people there. Go spread out. Get away from Los Angeles for a little while. But the other side of that is, yeah, I can see the idea of, okay, well, we open up and we have the restrictions. You can only operate at a certain capacity. You can only allow so many people in at a time. But people are just going to gradually start moving past that and not caring. They're orders, they're not laws. Nobody legislated most of these things, so they're just going to start getting sick of it, just get bored with it, and just stop doing it eventually because they don't care anymore. And they definitely don't. So that's what we're going to see as we're going forward. Yes, okay, we'll open up with restrictions, but the government's not going to gradually relax them. The government doesn't gradually relax shit. The people are going to start gradually relaxing and going back to normal life. All right, let's move on. From KOMO News, this I believe is out of Seattle. COVID-19, Governor Inslee announces contact tracing effort. Olympia, Governor Jay Inslee on Tuesday announced a plan to implement a robust contact tracing effort that will rely on 1,371 people to identify residents who came into contact with confirmed COVID-19 patients, part of an effort to contain and limit the spread of the mystery virus, which has already been linked to the deaths of over 900 people. During the afternoon press conference in Olympia at the state capitol, Inslee said it is a necessary step to restart the state's economy, of which a large swath has been sidelined as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The next major step in our effort to defeat the virus, Inslee said, it is supremely important to reopening our economy and businesses while protecting our health. The governor said the brigade of contact tracers will be comprised of 351 National Guard personnel, 630 local and state health workers, and 390 State Department of Licensing staffers. The new effort will include testing, isolation, and contact tracing, according to Inslee. Inslee said when a patient is tested positive for COVID-19, they will be contacted by the tracer, who will attempt to piece together other people the infected patient has been around. These people will be directed to self-quarantine and be tested to determine their status, Inslee said. The governor said the personal information obtained during contact tracing will not be shared. Bullshit. And they will not be asked about their immigration status, marital status, social security number, information, or any details about their finances. The first one I buy, the rest one, no. Contact tracing is another tool in our toolbox for tackling COVID-19 in Washington, Inslee said. While we need to continue physical distancing, this will allow us to get a better handle on who gets sick and how the virus is spread, which is vital to reopening our economy. There's a quote out there, and I don't think it got into here. It did not get into this. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not going to check into that. So this came to me from the Foo over on Twitter. I found the article that she had linked, which did not appear to be green check verified. So I went out and I found one that was green check verified. But according to the article that she put out, Inslee had actually said it could get to a point where it's dangerous for you to not go out in public if you haven't been contact traced, because you could spread the virus unknowingly. So we must get out and contact trace. So, and that just gave me vibes of nobody shall buy and sell unless they have the mark of the beast. So that is what they're doing up in Washington. So now we've got another one here from the Daily Wire. Biden on the pandemic. The people who are getting hurt are Democrats, our constituency. This is from Ryan Saavedra. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden appeared to politicize the coronavirus pandemic during an interview. Appeared to politicize. You mean as if he's just starting now? Is that where we're getting with this? Wow, it's been politicized since February. During an interview Tuesday night by claiming that the people who are getting hurt are Democrats. Look, Jack, the people who are getting hurt are Democrats, Biden said. Hard-working people, the people who can't afford to stay home, the people who are getting clobbered by corn pop, the people who are, making an hourly wage, the people who are out there saving lives, caring for the country, on their backs and losing their lives in the process. Oh, I got hiccups. Sorry. They're the people who are in trouble. Lots of millionaires aren't in trouble. People making tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands, they're not in trouble. But the people who are in trouble are the very people who are our constituency. Bill Gates is in your constituency. Just want to put that out there. And Trump was up until he decided to run for president with an R next to his name. Democratic-controlled New York is believed to be responsible for seeding most of the coronavirus outbreaks throughout the United States. Nathan Graba, an epidemiologist at the Yale School of Public Health, told the New York Times, "We now have enough data to feel pretty confident that New York has or was the primary gateway for the rest of the country." New York's disastrous handling of the coronavirus pandemic, led by Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo, the darling of the left, has led to the state having by far the most coronavirus cases and deaths in the country. Biden suggesting that it is Democrats who are suffering from the pandemic is not supported by any evidence, as the coronavirus has killed Americans in every state across the country and does not discriminate against any political affiliation. Biden is currently facing allegations that he sexually assaulted his former Senate staffer Tara Reid in 1993. Apple Meat Orange, thank you for pointing that out, Daily Wire. We are all aware of that. The allegation's credibility has been bolstered by numerous pieces of contemporaneous evidence that have emerged. This last paragraph right here. This here that you're seeing right there does not belong in this article. There was enough slam piece in the beginning of this article that Saavedra did not need to include this in any of this. All right, let's move on before I go on a rant against the Daily Wire, because I'm on the edge of that. All right, from Fox News, Schumer tells Fauci before Senate coronavirus testimony, let it rip. This is from Vandana Rambaran over at Fox News. Choose your provider. No. Why? Because I don't want to watch your live coverage. In eager anticipation of the Senate's virtual hearings with 4 top doctors from President Trump's coronavirus task force, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer urged Dr. Anthony Fauci, let it rip. Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is scheduled to testify for the first time before the Senate Health Committee on Tuesday about the way Trump has responded to the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and we've got another article here from Daily Wire, I'm pretty sure Schumer thought this was going to go a completely different way. Until now, we've mostly heard from members of the coronavirus task force through the distorted lens of the White House press conference, where the president often prevents them from answering fully, interrupts their response, and even contradicts their fact-based evidence, Schumer said on Monday. This will be one of the first opportunities for Dr. Fauci to tell the American people the unvarnished truth without the president lurking over his shoulder. Dr. Fauci, let it rip, he added. Fauci will be joined by Dr. Robert Redfield, the director for the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Stephen Hahn, the commissioner for the FDA, and Administrator Brett P. Gearwarrior. Wow, I bet that threw off some teachers in the elementary school days. The Assistant Secretary for Health. They will testify via teleconference due to social distancing restrictions put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The need for a virtual conference became even more paramount after 2 White House staffers tested positive for the coronavirus, and several members of Trump's task force, including Fauci, Redfield, and Hahn, self-isolated or entered some form of quarantine themselves as a precautionary measure. The New York Times reported late Monday that Fauci will warn that the country will risk needless suffering and death if it is opened up too quickly. The major message that I wish to convey to the Senate HLP committee tomorrow is the danger of trying to open the country prematurely, he wrote to reporter Cheryl Gay Stolberg. If we skip over the checkpoints and the guidelines to open America again, then we risk the danger of multiple outbreaks throughout the country. This will not only result in needless suffering and death, but will actually set us back on our quest to return to normal. And there was a testimony, and there was some pushback, of course, because it's D.C., and that's what they do with each other. And let's look at some of the pushback here that sparked especially some very brave people over on Twitter. This is from NBC4 Washington. This is a video only. Oh, that's lame. All right, I guess we're going to listen to this. I didn't intend for that to be a listen to thing, but let's get the headphones on and get yours on, and we'll see what Rand Paul has to say. I really should prep some of these sometime and actually read some of these.
But if we keep kids out of school for another year, what's going to happen is the poor and underprivileged kids who don't have a parent that's able to teach them at home are not going to learn for a full year. And I think we ought to look at the Swedish model, and we ought to look at letting our kids get back to school. I think it's a huge mistake if we don't open the schools in the fall. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that, even though there are only 32 seconds left?
Yes, and you might make it clear whether or not you suggested that.
Sorry about the volume, by the way. That's on NBC's side. I've got you bumped up as far as I can, unfortunately.
We shouldn't go back to school in the fall.
Well, first of all, Senator Paul, thank you for your comments. I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. I'm a scientist, a physician, and a public health official. I give advice according to the best scientific evidence. There are a number of other people who come into that and give advice that are more related to the things that you spoke about the need to get the country back open again and economically. I don't give advice about economic things. I don't give advice about anything other than public health. So I wanted to respond to that. The second thing is that you use the word we should be humble about what we don't know. And I think that falls under the fact that we don't know everything about this virus. And we really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children, because the more and more we learn, we're seeing things about what this virus can do that we didn't see from the studies in China or in Europe. For example, right now, children presenting with COVID-19, who actually have a very strange inflammatory syndrome, very similar to Kawasaki's syndrome. I think we better be careful if we are not cavalier in thinking that children are completely immune to the deleterious effects. So again, you're right in the numbers that children in general do much, much better than adults and the elderly, and particularly those with underlying conditions. But I am very careful and hopefully humble in knowing that I don't know everything about this disease, and that's why I'm very reserved in making broad predictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. And Senator Baldwin.
Senator Baldwin. That's a joke right there. I know who that woman is. All right, so that is what Fauci had to say. And yeah, Rand Paul came out. Yeah, you're not the end all. And he's not. He's just another person that has an. And we should listen to him. But we should make our own decisions based on what we think is best for us and the advice that comes from him. It's a balancing act. We can balance. We're intelligent creatures. We don't need Fauci to tell us what to do, but he's welcome to make a suggestion on top of it as well. So let's balance that out. All right, next. It was funny too because the Twitter warriors were out there, and Brooklyn Dad Defiant over on Twitter decided that he wanted to step in the ring with this one, and informed us that Dr. Fauci should get up and finish the job that Rand Paul's neighbor started last week. So, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, rather than going out and taking the shot himself because he's such a brave keyboard warrior, decided that it would be better for an 80-year-old scientist who took an oath to do no harm, a Hippocratic oath, to go out and kill Senator Paul. That sounds like greatness right there, just greatness. All right, this is from the Daily Wire. Dr. Fauci testifies Trump admin hit the accelerator in every aspect in responding to coronavirus. This is from Daily Wire News. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, testified before the U.S. Senate on Tuesday that the Trump administration responded to the coronavirus pandemic by hitting the accelerator in every aspect. Senator Burr asked Fauci, has anyone in this administration ever asked you or any other member to take the foot off the gas of trying to find a cure or any other type of countermeasure? No, Senator, not at all, Fauci said. As a matter of fact, we at NIH, as you know, have right from the very beginning put our foot right on that accelerator in every aspect, including the development of vaccines and therapeutics. I'm going to work on that impression. And as I described in my opening statement, we actually started that in January, literally days after the virus was known and its sequence was published, Fauci continued. So no, I've never been told by anyone to hold back on the development of any countermeasure or any basic research project that we've been involved in. Fauci also highlighted that the work that the NIH has done in developing a vaccine, which Fauci said, was the fastest that anyone has ever moved to get a phase 1 trial. The NIH trial moved very quickly, Fauci said. On January 10th, the sequence was known. On January the 11th, the Vaccine Research Center meant to develop a plan. On the 14th of January, we officially started the vaccine development. 62 days later, we're now in the phase 1 clinical trial, with the 2 doses already fully enrolled. There will be animal safety. The phase 1 will directly go into phase 2 to 3 in the late spring and the early summer. If we're successful, we hope to know that in the late fall, early winter. They're still pushing for the vaccine. There are still some important issues, however, in COVID-19 vaccine development, Fauci continued. We have many candidates and hope to have multiple winners. In other words, multiple shots on goal. This will be important because this will be good for global availability if we have more than one successful candidate. We also, as the chairman mentioned, will be producing a vaccine at risk, which means we'll be investigating considerable resources in developing doses even before we know any given candidate or candidate's work. Fauci, CDC Director Robert Redfield, FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn, and Assistant Secretary for Health Brett Gurar all confirmed during their testimonies that they had non-confrontational relationship with President Trump and that the president listens to their scientific advice. Yeah, like I said, this did not go the way that Schumer wanted it to. Their statements came in response to a question from Senator Kelly Loeffler, who asked, "The mainstream media and indeed some of my colleagues in the Senate seem to want to paint each other or each of your relationships rather with our president during this wartime effort as a confrontational and lacking consensus. Can you categorically say here to the American people today whether this is true or untrue?" So yeah, that's good to see it. I mean, yes, of course, the media is trying to paint chaos in the White House, but I mean, the president is working together with everybody. And when Fauci says something that the MAGA crowd doesn't like, the MAGA crowd say it's time for Fauci to be fired. And when he says something the MAGA crowd likes, he's their best friend again. All right. I almost skipped this article, but I felt that I needed to get it on here. I love the fact that Ahmaud Arbery is in the hot topics up on the top of Fox News. From Fox News, from Talia Kaplan, Karl Rove, Democrats' last-minute move before California House election stinks. So we're going to move into the special elections here. Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff for President George W. Bush, weighed in on Monday on whether Democrats could be trying to manipulate Tuesday's special election for California's 25th congressional district seat by opening up a new in-person voting center in a Democratic area. "It was just done right here before the end and it stinks," Rove said on America's Newsroom. "You don't do things like that at the end of a contest. It looks like you're trying to jimmy the rules and give one side or the other an advantage." Rove made the comments 2 days after the National Republican Congressional Committee Chairman Tom Emmer sent a memo to all House Republicans with an urgent call to arms that Democrats were trying to steal Tuesday's special election between Republican Mike Garcia and Democrat Christy Smith. The winner will fill out the term for freshman Representative Katie Hill, who resigned in October of 2019 amidst a thruple ethics scandal. Once again, it is currently May 13th. We will be having an election, a general election, on the 10th, I believe, of November. Let's actually go look at that. Oops, too far. Yes, the 10th of November, we will be having another general election. It is currently May the 13th. Why are we having special elections at this point? House seats sit unfilled all the time. But no, we're going to go have that special election and then go have another, spend all of that money and have another one here. Well, it's California money, I guess. But they just had one here in Wisconsin, too, so. Garcia and top Republicans are crying foul about the county's decision to open up a new in-person voting center Saturday in a more Democratic area of the district. They argue Democrats pushed for the extra voting location after seeing mail-in ballot returns were favoring the GOP. Yeah, that sounds about right. It kind of sounds like what they were doing with the election here as well, when the early voting started going in favor of Justice Kelly, and they tried to delay the election as long as they could. All right. We are going to move on off of that, though, because this is all pre-race, and we've actually had the election happen at this point, and results are coming in. So this is going to be from Politico. Republican takes the lead in California special election. The GOP also retained an open house seat in upstate Wisconsin, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. Republican Mike Garcia, a former naval aviator, maintained a lead early Wednesday over Democrat Christy Smith in a special congressional election in the Los Angeles suburbs. Garcia took 56% to Smith's 44% when counting temporarily concluded early Wednesday morning. But the Associated Press did not project a winner with an unknown, of course they didn't, with an unknown number of ballots left to count. Garcia was bullish in a call with his supporters held in lieu of an in-person election night event, telling them the campaign was in the position to declare victory as soon as returns come in. "I won't give a victory speech tonight," Garcia said Tuesday evening. "We'll save that for hopefully tomorrow night." Garcia and Smith faced off in a highly watched race, one of two held Tuesday that will provide one of the first indicators of the electorate's mood since the coronavirus gripped the nation. Earlier Tuesday, Republicans easily held onto a rural district in northern western Wisconsin vacated by former GOP Rep. Sean Duffy. The more telling battle is in California's 25th district, where Democrats are at risk of losing a seat they won handily 2 years ago. The winner will succeed former Representative Katie Hill, who resigned late last year after admitting to an inappropriate sexual relationship with a campaign staffer. In a statement Tuesday night, Smith, a state assemblywoman, said the race was too close to call and she was not yet conceding. What was that number again? 56 to 44? Garcia's up 12 points at this point. Into Wednesday morning. You're right. I mean, it could go either way, and this is California, but I'd start crafting that concession speech at least. If you're not going to read it right away, I would at least start crafting it. "It is critical that every ballot cast is counted and the voice of every California 25 voter is heard," she said. Though Democrats have a voter registration advantage of nearly 30,000, the health crisis has created conditions ripe for a GOP upset. Turnout in the runoff thus far, roughly 143,000 votes have been counted, is on track to surpass most recent special elections in the region. But the electorate has skewed older and less diverse and thus more favorable to Republicans. Democrats are preparing to cast a loss as a fluke caused by an exceedingly unpredictable political environment and the lingering cloud of Hill's scandal, but Republicans hope the race is a harbinger of their ability to claw back some of the suburban territory they lost last cycle. Hillary won this district, which spans the northern Los Angeles suburbs, by 7 points, and Hill ousted Republican Steve Knight by 9 points last year. In the first round of voting, held on the same ballot as the state's Super Tuesday presidential primary, on March 3rd, Smith finished first with 36% of the vote, but came far from clinching the race with a majority. Garcia defeated Knight, the former congressman, for second place and a spot in the runoff, 25% to 17%. President Donald Trump is not popular in the district. One recent internal Democratic survey found his favorability ratings underwater by double digits, but he has still inserted himself into the race. He endorsed Garcia via Twitter and then waded into partisan bickering. Jesus Christ. You can tell this is Politico. Over the last-minute opening of an in-person voting station in a Democratic-leaning area of the district. "They're trying to steal another election," he wrote in a Saturday tweet. "It's all rigged out there. These votes must not count. Scam!" Even if she loses the race, Smith will still face Garcia in November rematch. Party strategists insist that will be an easier to climb because Democratic voters will turn out for the presidential race. True, but so will Republicans, because Trump is actually going to be on the ballot this time. And there's not as much, I know there's enthusiasm to vote against Trump, but there's not as much enthusiasm to vote for Biden as there was for Hillary. I mean, he's just a stand-in at this point. So the general is going to be very, very interesting to sit and watch. And of course, Garcia will actually have incumbent advantage at this point too. And I mean, Garcia can run on Katie Hill's record, which I'm pretty sure is what he did at this point as well. So there are a lot of factors that go in this one, and the November election here can go either way, no matter what happens here. All right, from Fox, we have Wisconsin special election goes to GOP's Tom Tiffany. Trump takes Nebraska primary, from Greg Ree. Republican Tom Tiffany, a Wisconsin state senator endorsed by President Trump, easily won a special congressional election Tuesday in the state's heavily conservative rural 7th congressional district. Meanwhile, with less than half the vote in, Trump has already doubled his 2016 total in Nebraska's presidential primary. Also underway Tuesday, that led GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel to tout what she's calling surging enthusiasm for the president's reelection. Voting was still underway in California's 25th congressional district, where Trump and the National Republican Congressional Committee have claimed Democrats are trying to steal the election with last-minute move to open up additional polling stations in the district, which is located in the northern suburbs of Los Angeles, and in the neighboring high desert Antelope Valley cities of Lancaster and Palmdale. The district was long held by Republicans until Democrat Katie Hill's victory in 2018 midterm elections. As the area's electorate became younger and more diverse, but less than a year into her term, Hill resigned amid controversy involving intimate photos of her that were published online without her consent. No, that's not what happened. And after a House ethics probe looked into accusations of an improper relationship between the Congresswoman and a staff member. And this is something we're actually going to have to sit down and watch as we're going in and looking into the election coming up here, because this is going to be the election to end all elections. Not necessarily the most important election of our lifetimes, but this is going to really show what the American people want and need. And you have to keep in mind that Trump won the primary, obviously, with huge voter turnout in a primary in which he's running unopposed, which means his voters in Middle America are absolutely ecstatic to go out and vote for President Trump right now. I'm not currently. He's on my off list right now. I'm a sometimes Trumper, and he's on the off switch right now for me, but his base are coming out in droves and numbers, and they're growing, because they want to keep voting for him over and over and over again. Like I said, there's nobody running against him. There was no reason for Nevada primary voters to go out and vote for him. It would be more advantageous of them to go out and try and shake up the Democratic side of the ticket right now, because Bernie Sanders is still on a lot of these ballots. It would be more advantageous for them to go out and sow discord in the Democratic Party, but they still want to run out and vote for Trump, even though he's running unopposed on the primary. And that's going to tell you something about what we see in turnout coming up in November. So keep that in mind as we go. But, of course, there's going to be massive turnout on the other side, too, because Orange Man bad and we have to get rid of him. So this isn't going to be the most important election of our lifetimes, because, of course, the immediate next one after that is going to be. But this is going to be a very interesting one to watch and see what happens with it. It's going to be the most entertaining. I can probably predict that. From the New York Post, Michelle Caruso Cabrera gets AOC knocked off Working Families Party ballot line. This is from Carl Campanile. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was knocked off the Working Families Party ballot line Tuesday after the left-leaning party failed to collect enough signatures to make the Democratic Socialist incumbent its standard bearer. Queens Supreme Court Judge Philip Hom ordered the Board of Elections to remove the Congresswoman, who goes by her initials AOC, on social media from the WFP line after hearing a legal challenge filed by her Democratic primary opponent, Michelle Caruso Cabrera. Hom said a review of the WFP's petition filed for AOC found that it contained less than the required number of signatures of enrolled party members necessary for party designation. Caruso Cabrera reveled in knocking the Congresswoman off the WFP ballot line for the 14th congressional district seat that encompasses part of Queens and the Bronx. The AOC campaign is in shock. She has hurt working people in the Bronx and Queens with her votes and creates disunity within our party. Her own campaign spokesman ran away from her in March. No wonder why pro-union forces don't want her, and neither do our neighborhoods, Caruso Cabrera said following the ruling. The removal from the minor party line is an embarrassment for the WFP, but it's unclear what impact, if any, it will have on the Democratic primary between AOC and Caruso Cabrera. It does not show that Caruso Cabrera, the former veteran CNBC anchor, is running an aggressive campaign against the first-term incumbent. Ocasio-Cortez, 30, upset veteran ex-Congressman Joe Crowley in the Democratic primary in 2018, shocking the political world. Crowley subsequently resigned as chairman of the Queens Democratic Party. At the time, the WFP backed Crowley against insurgent Ocasio-Cortez. The WFP claimed condensed petitioning period during the coronavirus pandemic for the ballot debacle. So, yeah, I think that's going to be another big stretch. This is the race that I want to watch. I've got to actually look and see when the primary is going to be, but I really want to watch this one because I want to see if Caruso Cabrera can pull it off. I know Cortez has got her star power across the entire United States, and she could probably run out and run somewhere else and possibly win, but I don't think that the Bronx and Queens want her anymore. And yes, there were talks after the census of actually districting her, removing her district entirely on top of it too. So I don't think New York wants her either. So that's just an interesting thing. But of course, she got another major appointment here. This is the last one that we'll look at here from the Daily Wire. Biden goes far left. AOC gets top campaign spot to push a radical Green New Deal after she cheered job losses last month. This is from Ryan Saavedra. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden confirmed Tuesday night that Democratic Socialist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was working with his campaign to promote her radical $93 trillion Green New Deal, which gives the government far more control over the economy and poses a complete takeover of some private industries. The move comes after Ocasio-Cortez cheered American job losses last month that happened in the energy industry as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. No, that was as a result of Saudi Arabia going out and getting in a fight with Russia and then turning the spigot on as fast as they could go. That had nothing to do with the coronavirus. Well, that was a minor aspect of it. Let me rephrase that. It did have something to do with the pandemic, but that was the minor aspect of it. The major aspect of it, of course, was the fact that Saudi Arabia was pumping oil out faster than we could store it. Ocasio-Cortez will co-chair a task force for the Biden campaign on climate change, a source with direct knowledge of the planning tells CNN. I think that's going to further bolster Caruso Cabrera's political ambitions, because if she's focusing on the Biden campaign, what is she doing for her district? A source with direct knowledge of the planning tells CNN, a move that adds progressive credentials to the former vice president's efforts to unify the party ahead of the general election. Yeah, he's trying to court the DSA at this point because they turned around and put their dicks in the asses of the Bernie Sanders campaign. The group is one of several task forces being formed to bridge the divide between the policies of Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who ended his White House bid last month. An aide for Ocasio-Cortez said that she made the decision in conjunction with the far-left climate change activists. Biden later confirmed the news during an interview with News 8 in Las Vegas, during which she also appeared to falsely suggest that the coronavirus pandemic was only impacting Democrats. We read that one earlier. Well, the good news is that Bernie has robustly endorsed me. We've set up joint committees together to deal with how we would deal with everything from the virus all the way down to education, the criminal justice system, and the Green New Deal, etc., Biden said. And we've got overwhelming support. I mean, we're more united than almost every single person who competed in the primary has now wholeheartedly endorsed me, campaigned around the country for me, using their digital media to promote our campaign, and I'm working with Bernie and his people. Yeah, Bernie and his people still don't like you, dude. So, yeah, this is going to put some shakeup in here. And of course, like I say, the Biden campaign is trying to pull the people that they stabbed in the back to try and get them to vote. And this is kiss the ring and bend the knee 2.0. That is exactly what we're seeing out of this. We screwed your candidate over. Now come over and kiss the ring. And I don't think they're going to fall for it twice. I really don't. AOC turned her back on Bernie Sanders, so I mean that's a symbolic thing in and of itself. It's not AOC is not a DSA, a Democratic Socialist. As much as she's trying to use that to try and garner support across the country, but she's not. She's just going to whoever is going to raise her up the highest. And when Bernie Sanders was the person who was the best for her political ambitions, then she was behind him. But as soon as he was not the clear path for her to get into the executive branch, she dumped him like a sack of hot potatoes, and now she's standing on Joe Biden's back. So, yeah, this is all one hand washes the other. This is corruption like nothing I've ever seen before. This makes the Trump camp look like a saintly group of church choir participants. And anybody who tells you, anybody with a MAGA in their title, that tells you that there's no corruption in the Trump camp is lying to you to your face, because that is not as corrupt as some of the campaigns and camps that we've seen across D.C., but it's up there. And that is going to be it for the news. So the last thing that we do on Wednesday is that we think about something that I'm thankful for. And I thought about this for a little while. And I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And honestly, I am most thankful right now for the fact that I do still have my parents with me. Oh, sorry. Because I changed the camera size, of course. I've got to turn the camera off and back on in order to get it to register. I took some time and I did my civil disobedience last weekend. I drove across the state and I saw my mom for Mother's Day. Because it was the right thing to do. It was what I needed to do. And, you know, I live 4 hours away from my parents. And especially under the pandemic, I never get to see them. I never get to see my nieces and nephews or my parents or anybody else that's important to me. And yes, I chose to do this because I didn't see a future for myself in the small town that I grew up in. I saw bigger and better things out across the state and even across the country. Remember, I lived in Boston for 2 years. Well, not in the city, but just outside of it. But that still none of that means the fact that I don't care. And I do still want to take the time and see them. And, you know, most people always regret the fact that their parents weren't around. Or their parents aren't around anymore. And mine still are. I still have plenty of time left with them with all hopes, and I'm going to take advantage of that, especially as long as I live within 5 hours of them. I'm going to take advantage of it as many times as I can. And during the pandemic, especially given the fact that my parents mostly consume mainstream news, it would have been very easy to turn me away, to just turn around and say, well, we've got a pandemic, you can't come in. But no, they pulled me in with open arms, partially because I think that they both know that my dad had the disease before February. We're all pretty positive that that's what he had back in February, which means that he had it and has the antibodies for it, and we're pretty sure my mom had it and has the antibodies for it. So I'm pretty sure that they're safe at this point. But yeah, with the fear porn and everything else that's going on, I've got good parents that still recognize the fact that family is the most important thing of all and welcomed me in with open arms when it would have been just as easy with what CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and everybody else is telling everybody to do, to just turn me away at the door and say, we're an at-risk population, you can't come in. And that's what I'm thankful for. And I'm really glad I got to look at my mom in the eye and say Happy Mother's Day. And that's going to be it for the day. We will be back here with more news and more commentary, and hopefully everybody hasn't ripped the country apart yet. Maybe we'll actually get definitive results from the California special election. Who knows? Sometimes it takes Californians months and months and months to count everything. But we'll check in with that. We'll check in with more top news, and we'll talk about a thing that I like and I think a thing that I hate, because tomorrow's going to be Thursday. And hopefully we'll see you here. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.